Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for listening to us every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. We are syndicated. You can find us on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. By the way, that's a really good place to, if you want to hear the truth. And it's not fabricated, it's not watered down, it's not nothing. You gotta check this one out, thenewscasterstudio.com. And I'm pretty sure, I'm just glad to be in the mix. Thank you guys for letting that happen. You can also find us on all the social media sites and facebook.com/DFeazell. Continue sending emails. You know something, it just thrills me. When you send emails to me, you just don't know what that does. It just elevates me. It just makes me feel really, really good. So continue saying you're not bothering me at all. It might take me a little time to get to everybody, but I do answer every one of them. Absolutely. I even check the spam folder. So anyway, I'm not going to let you go. Alan Mendenhall, a good friend of mine, is with me right now. Been on the show. No stranger to this show. Has been with me for a number of years. He's with the Heritage Foundation. And so you should see the shows before the show.
I was just thinking that, Donna. I was just thinking if people only knew what we talked about before this thing went live.
They'd probably believe it on my end, but not on your end. So a lot of folks have been sending emails, and it's about the new plan that's out there that President Trump has put together. And some folks are concerned. Some folks are saying best president we've ever had. And then there's some who are kind of in the middle. They don't know what to think. And I know you do a lot of research on things. I don't know if you've had time to do anything, but what are your thoughts on the big, beautiful deal?
The big, beautiful bill, the One Big, Beautiful Bill Act. So as we sit here today, it's July 7th. I don't know when this will air, if it'll air the 8th or 9th or whatever, but we're sitting here on July 7th. President Trump signed it into law on the 4th of July, which is, I guess, momentous and significant. Mm-hmm. But one reason why people have so many differing opinions about it is because it has hundreds of provisions. So anything that's that big is bound to have, pieces that people like, pieces that people dislike. At the beginning, when the Republicans were talking about how they were going to introduce their sort of economic policy this year, President Trump made it clear that he wanted to do everything in a one big, beautiful bill. And so the Republicans, in trying to figure out how they were going to do that, decided we're going to do this through this special parliamentary procedure that Congress has set up to expedite certain budget-related matters. And it's called budget reconciliation. And the reason why it's significant is it overrides the Senate filibuster rules, which would otherwise require a 60-vote supermajority. And so the Republicans, because they have that sort of slim majority, but not the 60, they hold 53 seats. That's not enough to overcome the 60. They knew with people like Rand Paul or Susan Collins that were sort of question marks for them that they had to go through this procedure, and they were going to need to rely on probably J.D. Vance's vote in the Senate as potentially the tiebreaker, which ended up being the tiebreaker. So that's how we got to where we got. The biggest thing the bill does, the most significant thing, is permanently extending the individual tax rates that Trump signed into law in 2017. So the big Trump tax cuts, that's the big thing. But it includes a lot of sort of, I'll call smaller items. I don't know, people weight different things differently, but it has tax deductions for tips. We've heard about the no tax on tips and overtime pay and certain tax deductions on auto loans if you're buying American vehicles. There are something called Trump accounts, which are these new child savings accounts for newborns. There's a tax on college endowments for colleges of a certain size. This is to go after the Harvards and Yales and places like that are advancing progressive values through the university system, and are basically mismanaging their budgets, arguably, but have this gigantic endowment that has been, free of taxation requirements that other corporations might be subject to. So Trump is imposing a tax hike on those investment incomes. He's also going to be cutting a lot of the Biden era energy tax subsidies and credits, and one of those is for EVs. This is what President Trump is saying has made Elon Musk mad. Elon Musk is saying, well, there's just too much spending, and Trump's saying, well, he's really just mad about the cuts to subsidies for EV. And then I think the thing that people are really, I guess, the thing that's probably the most controversial, maybe even for people in Alabama, is the situation with the Medicaid cut, the 12% cut to Medicaid spending. But also there are requirements in there for food stamps that expand the working requirements for food stamps, basically saying, that if you're an able-bodied person of working age, you need to be out there working rather than relying on food stamps. And then the big spending stuff. So there are those tax cuts and that, but the big spending stuff where spending gets increased is there's $150 billion in defense spending, and then $150 billion for basically immigration related stuff, border enforcement, deportations. There's increased funding for ICE, which is, of course, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which now will be the most funded law enforcement agency within the federal government. So that's where the new spending is mostly on defense and immigration, and then you have all these other cuts. Now, when it comes to something like this, as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to make everybody happy on everything. So the legislators that sign on to this are probably not getting everything they want. Nobody's going to get everything they want. Everybody's made compromises in order to reach this. I think that probably most Republicans feel the way Thomas Massie or Rand Paul feel about spending and the need to cut spending. But you can see how hysterical people got with just the 12% on Medicaid. And you realize that, okay, if you're going to try to cut more than that in other places, you're just dooming the bill. So maybe pass this big, beautiful bill now and address cuts in subsequent pieces of legislation. And I think that's what they're hoping for, is that the tax cuts will enable growth, which will offset the spending, and that gradually over the next 4 years of Trump's term, they can tackle the spending in other ways. Doge had all these cuts, and they've been making cuts in other places. But of course, it's kind of minor if you're looking at the Congressional Budget Office's estimates of the bill increasing the deficit by $2.8 trillion by 2034. So that is a significant amount of money, and that is, what people like Massie and Rand Paul are pointing to when they're saying they're upset about the bill. But I think the behind the scenes thing that go on, you're probably hearing a lot of promises and a lot of talk about, okay, pass this and we'll address spending cuts, in subsequent bills. But right now we got to get these tax cuts, and we are making these cuts to Medicaid, and they're unpopular because it turns out that most Americans want to pay less in taxes, but want more in their benefits. They want stuff for free, and they don't want to give up money. So it turns out just people are people. They want more money. Everybody wants more money, whether that means I have to pay less in taxes, or I get benefits. And the other thing is, once people get a benefit, they do not want to give it up.
That's the part. That's the
hooked on
problem.
it. And
Mhm.
that's the problem with this entitlement. Not just these federal entitlements, and they create a culture of dependency and complacency, and that's problematic. And one major point that the White House has made, in particular with Medicaid, is that there's a lot of Medicaid fraud. I think the Trump administration said that, according to CMS's own statistics, improper payments for Medicaid have exceeded $500 billion, and in just the past year, taxpayers spent $56 billion on benefits for able-bodied adults abusing the system.
Mhm.
And you also add in that over 1 million illegal aliens are receiving free health care on the back of taxpayers, and you've got a really significant problem. So a lot of these people are saying, people are going to get cut from Medicare. And well, some of these people are illegal immigrants who are over here because they were incentivized to cross the border in order to get free stuff from the United States government. And Medicaid is one of those things. SNAP food stamps, another one of those things. So when we're talking about people being removed, before we start doing the boogeyman thing, like, oh my gosh, all these people are going to, we start realizing, well, a lot of these people aren't even citizens to begin. They're illegal. They're here illegally. They broke the
And that's
law.
what we're all upset about to begin with.
Yeah. And I think overwhelmingly right now, Americans are saying that illegal immigration is the most important issue. And the Democrats have been sort of naive, ignorant when it comes to that issue. I mean, it hasn't really been since Bill Clinton was president that the party leaders have made that a priority issue.
It just blows my mind. But I wanted to mention this, okay? And this is surprising coming out of my mouth. I actually believe in welfare and food stamps, SNAP program. I believe in it. But I don't believe in it to be a career choice for you and your generation, the next generation, the next generation. With some people, it's just an endless thing. They don't stop. And if you're able-bodied, I think there need to be drug tests. Also, I think a good idea with the food, I think it should be, because here's what happens. I can tell you the people who are on the SNAP program when you go to the grocery store. They're the ones with the steaks and the hams and all that stuff. And I look at my cart like,
Yeah, I've seen that on TikTok or Instagram or one of those things where people, a woman was going through the line and showing how much she could get on the SNAP program. And the Trump administration makes a really good point about SNAP, which is that the mission of the program has failed, that it was intended initially to be a temporary help for those who encounter tough times, and that was an important function, and that is what he's trying to restore the program to. But the Trump administration also points out that only 28% of able-bodied adults on SNAP actually work. So think about that. 28% of the people receiving those SNAP benefits are 28% of able-bodied people that can work, are choosing not to because of this benefit. Because for a lot of them, what's easier to do? Get my SNAP money and all that and get my other benefits, whatever they may be, or actually go get a job. Well, if I can get paid to do nothing, I'm going to get paid to do nothing.
Mm-hmm. And that's what it's all turned into. And again, I'm okay with the program, just not as a career choice. A lot of divorcees, okay, myself for instance, okay, so I was divorced years and years and years ago, no child support, nothing coming in from him. But I didn't want SNAP. Well, they called it food stamps back in that day. I didn't want that. I didn't want welfare, none of that stuff. So I just worked hard. But most people aren't willing to do that. And I'll tell you, used to that was an embarrassment for people to find out you got food stamps or welfare. Now people are just they put it on social media.
That's true.
It used to be an embarrassment. It's not anymore.
Right. No, that's true. And I recall a segment that it was NPR, I believe, of all stations, did on disability in Alabama. And the reporter was going around and asking people in particular towns, why is it that whatever the percentage of the town, and I don't remember what the numbers were. This was probably a decade ago if I had to ballpark it, but it was a shockingly high percentage of the entire town basically being on disability. And so NPR was trying to figure out, well, is this entire town disabled? Like, what's going on? Like, why? And it turned out that there was a doctor in town that was just realizing that it was lucrative for him to tell everybody they were disabled. Then they could pay his checks, and he was figuring out that it was a pretty good gig for him.
Well, I was working at a radio station. That's where I developed asthma. So I know this other person who's on disability, and she's made a career choice out of being on disability. She could work, and she's really careful. There are things she does at home she doesn't want whoever to know about it because she's afraid she won't draw the disability. So she actually talked to me about that. She said, something, you could be on disability. And I said, for what? She said, because you have asthma. She's got her daughter on disability for having asthma, and the girl was not even out of high school yet.
Oh my
Now,
God.
how did that happen? This is in Alabama. And I said, I don't mean to think I'm better than anybody, but I don't want to be on disability. I enjoy working. I love it. I mean, because you get, and then Phil and I used to own a Snelling Personnel Services. As we were headhunters is what we were. We help professional folks find jobs. And that would be in management, doctors, lawyers, attorneys, whatever, we were helping folks find jobs. Well, I would have, sometimes people would come in and they would say, well, I want a supplement, but I can't make over this amount. And the reason they couldn't make over a particular amount is because it would bump into their food stamps and their welfare. And I would just tell those folks, I'd say, look, we just handle, their high jobs, their high profile jobs, and we don't do part-time. It's the only way I knew to get rid of them, because they would want something. And I would just send them down to the temp agency. I would say, go to the temp agency next door. They might be able to find you something.
I was talking to the headmaster of a classical school recently who told me he had interviewed a candidate for a teaching position, and that person introduced herself as somebody who was just there to do an interview. And he said, what are you talking about? And she said, oh, I'm on, and I don't recall what benefit or entitlement program it was on, but whatever the program was required her to do X number of job interviews to try to show that she was trying to get a job, but she didn't actually want the job. Mm-hmm. So she basically told him, I don't really want this job, but I have to show that I'm trying to get a job. So that's what I'm here to do, is just do this interview. And the guy said, okay, well, I guess we're done here. Basically, you don't actually want this job. Let's just move on.
They would come to me when we had the cell phone stores, and folks would come in and they would say, I need you to sign this and ask for a job. And I would say, what am I signing? And they would say, then I came looking for a job. And I'd say, you didn't come looking for a job. You came to me wanting me to sign that you came into the door. So I wouldn't sign it. I just wouldn't do it. I would find somebody else.
And that's the type of culture, unfortunately, that these entitlement programs breed. And it's not just a culture of dependency, but it's a culture of waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's a culture that's frankly unethical. And also, it deprives people of means, of the opportunity to actually help out neighbors in need. I mean, if you were to go back to 19th century America or something, obviously not a perfect time and place. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of troubles. But if you're looking within the citizenry itself and the way communities and fraternal leagues and civics organizations and churches and synagogues took care of other people in their community, people were much more involved in each other's lives and helping each other out and trying to help people get jobs. It was a different culture, but it was a pull up your sleeves and get to work and work hard and see what you could accomplish. It was a very industrious and prosperous time. And we've sort of lost that mentality. And it's not just the idea of the American dream, but it's the idea of taking pride in your work and trying to build stuff and do stuff and accomplish things. It's aspirational.
Well, it's taking the dream away. And by the way, they're a natural Democrat voter. I mean, they just will be. That's what they're after. They don't care how much money it costs. That's what the whole thing is all about. It's a plan. It's part of the strategy. But I mean, I remember my granddads would talk about welfare and food stamps. And my granddad said, they didn't have it back in my day. I said, they didn't have welfare programs? And he said, no. He said, your church was the hub. He said, we would find out people in the community, maybe the man had lost his job, bunch of kids and all this kind of stuff. And he said, the church would get together and gather up food for them out of their harvest, out of their food, out of their canned, whatever. It would take the food to them. There was no welfare program back then.
Yeah, I think this is. I think what the Trump administration is doing on some of these benefits is important. Is just increasing the weekly work requirement, the weekly hour work requirement for able-bodied people. For people who can work, they need to be working in order to get these benefits, to continue getting these benefits. And as another sort of just kind of final point on all of this that I think is significant, but the one big beautiful bill has not touched Medicare. There's nothing in the bill that reduces spending on Medicare benefits. So that's something that I think, in particular, older adults need to be mindful of, because I've seen these ads on TV that are just scare tactics to try to scare people and make people think that, oh, anybody, if I fall in this range of 65 or older, whatever, I'm going to lose all my, Medicare. That's just not the case. This bill does not reduce spending for Medicare at all.
No, I mean, I'm drawing my Social Security. I am. And I take a hit on it every single year because I actually work and own a business. Well, I would much rather work and have to lose some of that. I mean, I'd rather, because the sky's the limit as far as the way I see it. I mean, we just brought in another new sponsor that we're tickled about. So to me, the sky's the limit. Why are you holding your own self down so that you can draw a minimal amount of money and you're still looking for more money? I mean,
right, exactly.
It creates people, breaking into houses. And I wanted to mention something else to you. This is getting off of that just for a second. I wanted to talk, but we kind of touched on it, illegal immigration. Okay, so I saw an article. It was talking about crime rates in Alabama and different areas. They mentioned Albertville, Alabama. I think I sent it to you. I'm not sure if I did or not. But Albertville, Alabama, with all of the Haitians and all the illegals coming in, it's turned into a bad area. I'm just telling you. It's one of the reasons we moved it back to the Carolinas. It was looking pretty bad in where we're at, too. And we're seeing these little houses and things all over the place. So anyway, in this article, they're saying Albertville, Alabama is above the national crime rate. Rapes have went up. Theft has went up. All of these things have went up. But people in the town, on the city council, the mayor, staff, all of them are scratching their head trying to figure out how this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Well, common sense. Why do you think it happened? Because it's never been that. That's always been one of the nicest, cleanest towns, and it's just turned into a dirt bag. As a matter of fact, in Boaz, Alabama, now they've stopped a prostitution ring.
Oh my goodness! You had a show. Your show was in Boaz at one point. I remember that. Wow, that's wild. I remember seeing something about either a prostitution or some sort of something going on in Florence not too long ago. That was like a hotel or some hotels being used. I don't know if it was human trafficking or what the issue was, but it's scary. I was just in Montgomery yesterday, looking around the downtown. A sunny summer afternoon, and the streets were empty, and everything was boarded up. And the place where the Irish Pred Pub used to be was closed. There were signs on the windows saying, real estate available. And Montgomery has just been absolutely devastated by a Democratic mayor, Stephen Reed. He has just destroyed that city. It is a shell of its former self. When I first moved to Alabama in 2013, Montgomery was sort of making progress and coming out of some struggles, but now it has just been run to the ground.
Well, did you ever notice that? Okay, anywhere where the Capitol is, and for the most part, even sometimes, even if there is a Republican governor there in DC, DC has to be one of the nastiest cities on earth. I mean, it's just DC is horrible. I mean, so Phil and I were in DC, and so I said, let's just see what the McDonald's is like in DC. It was right, not too far from the White House. So it was the scuzziest looking place. Phil said, I'm glad I brought my gun in. And I mean, it's just like, I said, let's leave. Okay, can we go? But that's what happens is your towns turn into terrible places. That I had shared with you about a job. I almost took this job in New York City. When Giuliani was the mayor there, that was a clean place. I went several business trips there, and me and the groups of people we would all hang out as a group, and go somewhere after classes, after trainings. And so we would just walk, I mean, all hours of the morning, at night, whatever, and felt so safe. Now, of course, there was crime going on. There always is. But now, no way. No way.
Yeah. I'm in Union Station in DC frequently for breakfast. I'm there in the morning, and I run through the Chick-fil-A there or the McDonald's there, and there are some interesting characters out and about at that time of day, and a lot of them who have not yet gone to bed. They're still up from the night before, but it is sad. And while parts of DC, have so much promise, there are parts that are really struggling right now.
Yes, that way. Tuscaloosa. The last time I went to Tuscaloosa was not looking too bad. Looked like they're cleaning it up just a little bit. But they were up into Tuscaloosa and like, no way. Yeah. It's hard to imagine, Alabama Roll Tide football being there. The University of Alabama was like, well, and the same thing where the Braves are in Atlanta. I mean, it's right in the middle of a scuzz hole. I mean, it's just a terrible place. And I love the Braves. But I don't want to have to run for my life going from the ballpark to my car either.
Well, I think the Braves made the right decision in moving out to Cobb County and relocating away from Turner Field. I think that this new stadium I say new, it's been there for several years now, but it still feels new. But it's in a much better location, and I think that the surrounding businesses are all doing very well. It's the Battery is a great place to live. So that was a very good move for the Atlanta Braves.
I think so too. We need to go back now that that's happened, but I'm just telling you, it was just not quite 20 years ago, but when we went, and so Phil's daughters were here from Florida, and of course Brad was here, and so we went to see, and it was just like they were looking around like, is this safe?
Yeah. And the answer was probably no.
Let's just hurry up and get inside.
I will tell you one funny story. My parents, and I'm trying to think how many of us were there. It was I had my family with me. My brother I don't think he was married yet. I think he had a girlfriend with him, and I think my sister wasn't married yet. I think it was her now husband that was with us. But anyway, my parents, a big group of us, went to the Fox Theater in Atlanta to see a show. And I can't remember at this point which play we went to see. But my dad, who can be a little bit absent-minded sometimes, was driving my mom's brand new Lexus. And he parked it in the parking lot. And this was back when sort of keyless entry and, auto ignition, all that stuff was brand new. And he, I guess, wasn't used to driving without a key, or he was used to taking the key out, and he saw that the key was, wasn't in the ignition. So I guess he thought, I'm done. Well, he gets out of this brand new Lexus. I mean, she had bought it like the day before, maybe 2 days before. He gets out of this brand new Lexus in a parking garage in the middle of Atlanta and goes into the Fox Theater to meet us. He parks by himself. So he dropped off whoever was in the car with him to meet everybody else. And we're all in there watching the play. Then after the play, we walk next door to Maggiano's, or not Maggiano's, one of the places that does the fondue and we did the dessert. I'm blanking on the name of the restaurant, but it'll probably come to me when it's not important. But so we go there, Melting Pot. That's the name of it, the Melting Pot.
Oh, yeah,
so we go to the Melting Pot, and we are all doing desserts and things like that. And then we all go back to our cars, and the parking garage is completely empty, except for my mom's Lexus, which is sitting there still running by itself, and the key is in it. And we were like, how did this thing not get stolen? And the only thing we could figure is that some criminal walked up to it and said, no, there's no way.
There's a trick.
This can't be. This is brand new Lexus running with the key in it. There's got to be a cop like right here. Like, this is a setup. But it was there probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. I mean, who knows how many hours it was there, just sitting there like that. My mom was not happy with my dad.
Oh, I bet. There was a little discussion on the way home.
Yeah, I think she told him he might need to see a doctor. I think you probably need to get checked. No one else would do something like that.
Absent-minded professor. Smart guy.
A little bit.
That was the least of his concerns. We're going to go into a commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody hang in there, okay? More interesting facts coming in.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Donna's Designs offers a line of handmade memorial, wedding, and keepsake jewelry that launched back in 1970. I'm a self-trained jewelry designer, and I will work closely with you to create unique designs you can love and treasure for years to come. Whether that be flowers that were used in a funeral arrangement or stones you found on the beach at a memorable trip, call me at 256-659-4319, and let's think of the possibilities.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared. and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
We are back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m. on the Eastern Time Zone. So I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. You're the reason I do this. Continue sending emails. We love hearing from you. Donna at donnasedge.com. That's Donna at donnasedge.com. I have Alan Mendenhall with me right now, and it's always interesting topics. And I didn't mean to just kind of throw it on you, but I know that you do a lot of research, and we've been talking about the big, beautiful bill and all those things that are happening in the United States right now. I feel good about it. And it's not, but there are things I don't agree with President Trump on every single thing he does. And I'm like you, I always like to dissect and take everything apart and put it back together and see how it works. But from my mind, a woman's complicated mind, don't laugh, but a woman's complicated mind, I get it. I see what he's doing.
Yeah, and if you think about it in terms of this, if you were to say, okay, I'm going to list all the pros and I'm going to list all the cons, and do the pros outweigh the cons? That's one way of looking at it. Now, a lot of people wouldn't vote that way, and I don't know that I would vote that way if I were in Congress. I don't know how I would vote in Congress. I don't have any plans to be a politician, but if you start looking at that and then you start thinking about other things that it does that we didn't even talk about, like capping the amount of student loans that borrowers can take out, or prohibiting Medicaid from going to any sort of Planned Parenthood initiative. So, you're trying to defund Planned Parenthood through this. There are a lot of things that we didn't even discuss, because like I said, the bill contains hundreds of provisions. So it's a very difficult thing to generalize about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would never want to be in politics myself. I enjoy what I do. I like having some peace of mind. But I would have to say, look, if we got to have a bigger recess in this, I've got to really dig before I would vote on anything. And I love Trump. I think he's the best president we have ever had in the history of the United States. But I'm not real quick at saying, yeah, that's what I want to do. I always want to try it first, and just not necessarily try it first. I just want to know. I want to know what's it all about.
And Trump, this is just the latest of an astounding list of recent accomplishments. Even CNN last weekend went on this monologue about how President Trump just keeps winning on his agenda. And this is, they realize, to dismantle Iran's nuclear program without any sort of American initiation, to have Israel initiate it, and to have President Trump end it without getting anybody into a war, without causing World War III, was,
it's unreal. Without losing a single life.
Without losing a single
life.
American life. Yeah, the Iranians and the Israelis have taken lives of each other. But in that conflict, one thing that it's very clear as an outside Western observer is just watching, how Israel is targeting military facilities, whereas Iran targets civilians. It's just just looking at that alone is, revealing so much about which culture places a higher value on human life and dignity.
I wanted to talk about Israel for just a few minutes. It has to be one of the brightest places on earth. And what I mean by that, of course, Christianity, but I also mean these folks out there have a brain. Some of the best medical physicians ever on the earth are there. The discoveries that come out of Israel it's just weird. It's just, they're being blessed. And I think we need to be in part of that.
Yeah, I think Israel is an example of democracy amid countries that don't value that form of government. It is the fount of Western civilization. And I think the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob enjoy a special place in the narrative of human history. And Israel's accomplishments are astounding. If you look at what they are able to do with just their size, technologically, militarily, in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation, it really is amazing.
It is. It makes you wonder sometimes. Like sometimes you'll see a whiny, weird-haired purple hair person crying and carrying on because President Trump is the president now. And then you see all of the folks who are enemies to Israel. They're not successful. They're mad all the time. They're constantly fighting. They could never be happy. But then the people in Israel are successful. Wouldn't you think some of those folks would go, oh, the meeting they have, excuse me, they seem to have it going on. Why can't we be a little bit more like they are?
Well, as we speak right now, there are protesters in Washington, D.C. because Netanyahu is in town to meet with President Trump, among other government officials. And this afternoon, there is a planned protest outside the Heritage Foundation where I work. And the protesters intend to surround the building and block all exits. It's just barbaric behavior. These people are enemies of civilization.
What you do, okay, so I've had some competitors. I don't even consider them competitors because I don't know anybody who does what I do. But anyway, sometimes your so-called competitor will try to give you a hard time, just kind of snuff you out of business. And it's never happened. So I take it as a compliment, actually, because if you're working that hard and you've been working for years to get rid of me, well, then why are you wasting your time if I'm not? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I must be doing something right if I'm worth your time,
Okay. But I'll tell you who helped me see that. Bobby Ledbetter with Twin City Used Car Sales.
Okay.
He helped me see that. So what happens, he and I were just talking one time, and he said, your competitors give you a hard time. I said, yeah, they kind of do. And he said, I don't pay them any attention. He said, because he was working for another car place, and they were letting people steal his sales, the owner was. And so he said, let one more person steal this car sale from me, and I'm out of here, and I'm starting my own place, and I'll be your competitor. Well, they did it one more time. Over the weekend, right next door to him, he opened his own place. He didn't have a phone in yet. He was waiting on the phones to come. So he was having to use his cell phone. And he said, Donna, he said, if you're getting somebody's goat, if they're afraid of you, or they wouldn't be giving you such a hard time. And I've thought about that so many times with Trump. I mean, all the things he's had to, nobody has had to, except Jesus above, but no one earthly person that I could think of has had to just jump so many hurdles. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah. How many of us have had to survive 2 assassination attempts in order to just do our job? It's
well, I mean, if this had been Phil and Phil was running for president and there were 2 attempts, I would have talked him out of running. I would have said no.
You scared me for a minute. I thought you were going to say you would be one of the temps.
No. No, but most wives would. But I would say a wife of Donald Trump would never be able to talk him out of anything if he's headstrong wanting to do it. Phil would be the same way. If he's headstrong, he's going to do it. But my point is listen, your family members would be trying to talk you out of it. Like, Dad, we want to keep you around. They're not going to stop until they kill you. There had to be conversations like that going on.
Yeah. Oh, I know those conversations. I just wrote a piece very critical of Regions Bank, and I had people warning me saying, oh, don't do this. They're going to retaliate. They're going to do that. And I said, well, like what can they do to me? Are they going to come and blow my car up? And somebody said, well, they might. Like, I just don't think so. But
they are kind of big. They are kind of big. But this is almost like when, before you graduate from high school or college, they say there'll be no throwing the caps. You can't throw the caps in the gymnasium after you walk across the stage. Well, what are they going to do? You just got your diploma.
Yeah. Take it away as you walk out the door.
Here. Take it. I had fun. I probably picked up somebody else's anyway. It probably wasn't really mine. But that's the whole point. Threats sometimes scare people from their dreams. And you got some big dreams, Alan.
Well,
you're a speaker, and tell them you're also a talk show host.
Well, yeah, I had a TV show until recently. When I left Troy, I gave up the TV show. I was using the television studio there, but I did host a show. But I have a radio segment called Word to the Wise, which is a monthly segment on Troy Public Radio. And my show was success stories, and I interviewed people. The tagline was for people who have accomplished great things and people whose lives and careers were significant. And so I interviewed political figures, CEOs, people from not just government and law, but also business and academia. And it was a broad net, and it was really fun. I got to meet a lot of people and have a lot of interesting conversations about what success meant to those people. And all of those are archived online. Somehow they made it into the federal government's archives, but I think the city of Montgomery has archived most of them as well. And then I keep them all on my personal YouTube channel, which my kids, they watch all this YouTube and they say, you need to do video where you say subscribe, you need to tell people you subscribe to my channel.
Let me ask you a question. What was the common denominator from all of these successful people, or was there one?
I can 100% say that very easily. The one key was that they all failed on their way to success. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them. Failure was just a step in the process of reaching the top. And none of them just had this, I'm just going to step on the escalator and it's going to be no problem at all. They messed up, or they had to learn something, or they struggled with something, or they had a big setback, or they tried something that didn't work. Every single one of them had a story like that. And also, I don't know that every single one of them had this, because I'm not sure we necessarily spoke about this in every conversation, but I just going off of memory, I would say a lot of them ended up having really good mentors. I remember a lot of people talking about, well, this person took me under his wing or her wing, or this person did a lot for me during my career. This person watched out for me when I was young, and this person taught me this. So that, I think, is also really important.
How many of them mentioned the book of Proverbs as a handy book for being in business? Because I'm going to tell you, that's what Proverbs always mentions that. All the way through it is basically find a mentor and listen.
A remarkable amount of wisdom in Proverbs. I think, I can't recall and speak on behalf of everybody who was on the show. Several people mentioned the Bible or scripture as influences, but I can't just sit here and quantify how many, cited Proverbs in particular. But I think one of the most important instructions in Proverbs, and there are so many, but one of the themes that emerges is take instruction, be teachable, be willing to put yourself and your pride aside and learn from mistakes. And that is huge, because it's almost against our nature to be teachable. And yet those who are most teachable are the ones that tend to, I'll say, rise above themselves, because we place all these limitations on ourselves by thinking that we know everything. That is an inherently limiting way of viewing the world. If rather than thinking, I already know everything there is to know, and here's what
if you know everything, you're dead. I mean,
exactly. But then thinking that, okay, here's what I think provisionally might be the case, but I'm going to be open to hearing other scenarios. I mean, even people who have a ton of experience and a set philosophical framework within which they are working and deep convictions will still welcome the perspectives of other people to make sure that they are not subject to blind spots. They want to make sure that they are seeing the big picture and that they are not missing something. And that's an important skill to learn.
You're reminding me of what my grandmother said. My grandmother was like the best cook ever, both grandmothers. I mean, they needed a recipe. I mean, they just knew how to do it. And they judged cooking, and I learned so much from them. They judged cooking on how it looked and how it smelled. I mean, there's just, no, that's no. I mean, start all over again. That's the way they were. And so I remember my grandmother, one in particular, was talking about. She said, "I'm going to teach you how to bake a cake without a recipe." Well, I was freaking. I was like 13, and I was like, I'll ruin the ingredients. I will, mess everything up. She says, "You're not going to mess everything up." So she said, "Use your hand. You pretend your hand is a cup." And I said, "But my hand is smaller than yours." She said, "Well, then you'll have a smaller cake." She said, "Use your hand. I want you to cup it, and you're going to put in 3 handfuls of sugar. You're going to put in 2 handfuls of self-rising flour." She made it a little bit easy for me. She said, "And then you're going to get a stick of butter, put that in there. And then you're also going to need about a handful." Now, we're going to have to be selective with this. So about a handful of buttermilk to go in that as well. And I want you to mix it up really good with the mixer. So I'm mixing it up with the mixer. And she said, "Now, what does it look like to you?" And I said, "Well, it almost looks like biscuit dough." And she said, "Why does that tell you?" And I said, "Maybe we need to add more buttermilk." She said, "You just learned."
You just learned. How about that?
That's how you do it. She said, you've got to look at it, because sometimes, like, live in a higher elevation, you're going to use more than you would use if you're in a lower elevation of a liquid versus, it's almost like chemistry. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a chemist. I mean, that's what it is. And that made me want to cook, because she said, you could be a chemist now because you know how to do all this. And I said, "So this is like chemistry?" Well, she knew how to get me interested. That was my word. I could be a chemist. So she was not only teachable, she was acting as if I was teaching her something.
Oh, interesting.
Because there was something, we're making gravy to go with the biscuits. And so I thought I'd made this up and never really paying attention to it. So because I had been cooking at home too. So I had milk and I put it in the microwave oven and I put it in there for 1 minute. She said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Because I'm always scorching the gravy. So if it's already hot, then I'm not going to scorch the gravy. I'll have all the ingredients ready, the flour and the whatever grease you're going to use. I'll have all that already in there. Then you add the milk. Well, if the milk is already hot, you're not going to scorch the gravy."
All I know is I'm really hungry now.
You can bake a pie the same way. You can do a chocolate pie the same way. You don't have to heat it. I mean, you just heat it in the microwave, and you're not going to scorch it, because that's what I was doing. I was scorching everything. Huh. And I thought, well, if it's already hot, maybe I won't scorch it. And my grandmother, you would have thought I was Einstein with her. She said, "I'm going to do that from now on." It was just, it made me feel so good about myself,
Oh, that's good.
This woman was the teacher. This woman could have been Julia Child, like I was the Julia Child, simply because I said that one thing. And I think that's what we're here for. I think we're here to be mentors for other people. And we can't know it all. There's too much to know, especially when it comes to technology. AI is just, it's growing by leaps and bounds. No one knows everything about AI.
No, AI doesn't even know everything about AI. I told you after the inauguration, when I was asking it about Trump's election, we had some episode during which I read what AI had spat out to me, but it was denying that Trump had been president. It was insisting that Joe Biden had been elected president. And I said, no, he was not. And not only did Joe Biden lose, but Trump won the popular vote, and AI was just insistent that it was Claude.
You were arguing with the biggest bot on the world.
Oh, and it wasn't just, it had no humility at all. And it kept saying, "This is unreliable information. You clearly don't know what you're talking about." I mean, it was so arrogant. That was what was making me mad. That's why I was arguing with it, because it was so arrogant. Like,
and nobody likes that. That's why the businesses, I think, for the most part, that fail are the ones who have taken the human touch out of it. Now, you got to have technology. For goodness sakes, I would much rather have my phone, everything, my kitchen timer, everything is in this one device instead of having all the different devices.
That was Phil right there, by the way, on the phone. We got a good cameo. Phil got a cameo. It's like, there we go. Yeah.
See there? It's a photo album.
This is Phil. Phil's like Alfred Hitchcock. He always wants to put himself in every show somewhere where he's in the background. Phil makes his appearance.
He said, "Thank you." But that's it. You can't know it all. and you never know who that, if you own a huge company, you never know, that person may have made a mistake in something in their life trying to build a business that can help you and encourage you. You never know. It could be the shipping clerk. It could be, and I'm going to tell you, the most important part of anybody's business is the greeter.
Yes.
If that greeter is nice to you, you'll want to go in.
You know, I was thinking about this yesterday when I was driving through a McDonald's. I confessed to having ordered a Big Mac on the way home. I just flown from it was. I felt guilty, but whatever. But I was thinking when I was going through this line, it was inefficient, it was dirty, and I was just like, I'm so used to Chick-fil-A where everyone's nice, it's so efficient. And McDonald's also has all this AI in there. You can go inside and without even going through the line, order stuff, but it still does not compare to Chick-fil-A, which shows you there is something to management. There is something to customer service, and McDonald's does not have what Chick-fil-A has on that front.
They don't. And Mr. Caffey, is it Mr. Caffey?
Yeah.
Who was invented? Okay, so
Truett Cathy was the deceased, but yes.
Well, he was being interviewed by Barbara Walters, and she said, you realize you could be number 1 instead of number 3 if you were open on Sundays. And they said, number 3 is not so bad. Plus, he gets a day off.
Yeah, he gets a day off. And people crave Chick-fil-A. The number of times my kids have said, let's go to Chick-fil-A. Oh, it's Sunday. We can't. But then they want Chick-fil-A.
Not think about Chick-fil-A all week, wake up Sunday morning. I'd like to have Chick-fil-A wait, they're closed on Sunday. Alan, we've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. I want you to spend the rest of the time talking about your books.
Oh, goodness. Well, thanks.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Sure. Well, I am actually working on the next book, which is just a collection of sort of the essays I've been publishing regularly. I write a weekly column for 1819 News, but I have a wide array of books, actually. Some are more academic. Some are like Of Bees and Boys, a collection of personal creative writing, narrative essays. And I have a novel that came out a couple of years ago, which is called A Glooming Peace This Morning. That's a line from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. But yeah, all my writings, whether they're books or articles, are on my website at alanmendenhall.com. That's ALLENMENDENHALL.com. And I said all my writings, but not all the articles I've published are on there. I try to, there's certain things that I've removed over the years because I thought, I said that when I was 20 years old and that was stupid. I'll try to make those send those down the memory hole. But most of the writings are still there, even though, at a certain point when you're looking at something you wrote like in 2008, you're like, wow, why did I write that?
Every day. Why did I say that?
Yeah.
I got to tell you something in ending this, okay? I got to tell you something I've never told you before. Okay, so I have this really issue with names, but it's common names that I have a problem with. Like
John, Joe, Larry, that kind of thing? Or
I can't get it. I always remembered your name. Alan Mendenhall. I mean, from the first, it's like the names that are not like Smith Jones, I can remember those. So I don't know. What does that say?
Well, I wanted my oldest son is named Noah Mendenhall, and I wanted to name him Lucas Maximus Mendenhall, and that got cut.
That got rejected.
But I was like, oh, he could go by Lucas Maximus Mendenhall. I mean, everyone would know that name. Yep. Nope. Not
That's
happening.
True. No one would ever forget it. There's something I remember on Golden Pond. Did you ever watch that?
It has been a long time, but yes.
Well, I remember Mrs. Thayer said she almost did not marry Mr. Thayer because her name was Ethel. And she didn't want people to think she was lisping when people would say, what is your name? She would say, Ethel Thayer.
Ethel Thayer. Oh, wow. Well, that's
not really important. But anyway, I wanted to spit that out there. Okay, folks, thank you again so much for watching Donna's Edge Talk Show. For Truth Matters, even if it's weird, truth matters. Thank you so much. And thank you, Alan, for being a friend of the show. And thank you so much for all the years that we've known each other. I've learned a lot from you. I really
goodness. I've learned a lot from you too. Thank you, Donna.
What not to do from me. It's what you've learned.
No.
Anyway, but thank you guys so much for watching. Continue sending the emails. I'm telling you, they make my day. Donna at donnasedge.com. Donna at donnasedge.com. Ellen, hang around. I got you. Get your schedule for next month. Thanks, guys, for being with us. Bye-bye.